Hello guys. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So is that my screen is visible, guys? For you guys?
Yes, sir. We should be, sir.
Okay. Okay. Guys, today what we plan to understand, which is nothing but your VPC, guys. So I will try to start this session, which is related to VPC. Again, remember, guys, whenever if we attend any interview, for an IT industry, most of the time, if they want to stop you or if they want to, ask some critical question, definitely, it is from VPC, because VPC is somewhat, the understanding wise, it's somewhat a bit difficult when compared to other service. But if you understand, yes, you will love it, guys, this particular topic. So yeah, we will try to understand this VPC part. I want you guys should have the complete focus on this particular topic. So we can have around 1.5 hours to 2 hour session today. I will try to understand the basic stuff on VPC. If possible, time permits, I will cover the practical demonstration. Otherwise, we'll see the practical implementation tomorrow. Right? Today, we'll try to understand the theoretical implementation. At least we will try. And if time permits, again, we will go for other part also. Right. So any question before jump into VPC? Guys, any question before jump into VPC? If no, yeah. So we will continue. Listen. Guys, you all know, right? We are all using the AWS account. We are all having the credential, like our email ID and password. Thereby, we can able to, accessing our AWS account. You all agree, AWS is the public cloud, right? AWS is the public cloud. That's the reason, everyone can able to create an account. Simply, if you have a credential. When I say credential, you have to have the credit card, right? Once you have a credit card, yeah, you can able to create the basic account. And you can provide your email address and password. You can able to log in. So everyone, we are all using the same AWS. Of course, it's a public cloud, right? Right? We are all using the same infrastructure. Now, suppose consider I have my database, guys. Consider like you have logged into your application and you are utilizing a database inside your AWS cloud, or you are using some EC2 instance from your AWS cloud, or you can take S3 bucket that you are accessing from your AWS account, right? Suppose what you are thinking, like maybe there is another account, or there is another guy, maybe a guy called a Prashant, right? Maybe I can name the person called Prashant. He maybe is the unauthorized guy, right? Or maybe he is the authorized guy, right? For his account. But what he is doing, like he is trying to access your account. It means that he is trying to access your database. Obviously, it is not correct, right? Because he is the unauthorized person. Database is created by Dinesh, but someone having the access on your AWS, because it is a public cloud, you may think like, hey, Prashant can access my account also. Prashant can hack my database also. It is not relevant, right? If you work with some IT industry and all, because he is the unauthorized person for your account, right? You may think, but so how to stop, accessing other person, or maybe other person, it should not access your account, right? Your resources, your services, he should not access. For that reason, what AWS is done, right? Every account, every resources that you are utilizing, right? There is the outer layer. There is a outer layer. Or even you can take the Prashant also. So in its outside of the resources, or maybe an account, there is a outer layer, the network layer or network boundary layer, which is nothing but VPC. VPC, it's a kind of a network boundary, guys. It's a kind of network security. It's a network security. So no one, from the other account or from unauthorized person cannot access your resources. How? Because of this VPC. So every account, it is surrounded by your VPC. It's a network boundary or network isolation. It provides a network security. How it is happening, that we will see practically. But always remember, every account is surrounded by a VPC. So VPC, it is a virtual private cloud. Within a public cloud, within a public cloud, we can able to create one private cloud. We can able to create one private network. That is nothing but your VPC. As of now, you just remember VPC, it is a private network. It will make isolation between the accounts. It will make the isolation between the account. No unauthorized person can able to enter your account. For that reason only we have a VPC. So far clear? I'm just giving the overview. Later we will talk about more. Are you clear so far? Yes, I'm expecting a yes or no.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So VPC, it's a network boundary. See, suppose let me take one small thing. See guys, whenever if you are designing any product, when I say designing a product, suppose if you are developing one application, and what are the important things that you need to always focus? You have to focus on 4 service guys. One is the compute service you have to focus, and the another one is you have to focus on storage part. The third one, which is related to database. The fourth one, which is related to the network, right? Which is related to the networking, right? These are the 4 important service always we need to focus. We already seen compute, right? We have seen like EC2. EC2 is one compute service. If you take storage, yes, S3, EBS, EFS, that all comes under your storage service. Database, not yet covered. Yes, definitely we will cover in the next session. Then finally we have a networking. So networking, it deals with your VPC guys. Networking, it deals with your VPC. See guys, suppose I have one EC2 instance. I have an EC2 instance. This is my EC2. This is my EC2. And consider I also have a S3 bucket. I also have a S3 bucket. S3 bucket is for your storage, simple storage service. And along with it, we also have, say, suppose some database. I have a database. Now, the question is how these 3 applications, EC2 has to communicate with S3, right? EC2 may need the data and it has to communicate with this database and all. How this communication is happening? Because whenever you launch any resources, that resources has to communicate, right, with other application. Yes or no? So this resources is communicating via network only. Without network, no communication between the resources. Of course, we need the network. If you need the network, then obviously we need to learn about VPC. Remember, network is nothing but interaction between the system, communication between the system, or integration between the system. So if you want to allow an integration or interaction between the system, what we require? We require a network. So if you need to understand the network, again, we need to go for a topic called a VPC. See, VPC, I hope you are aware of what is network. Network, it is to give the communication between the system. It is for communication or interaction between the system. Interaction between the resources. Now, let me talk about VPC. So VPC, it comes under your network, virtual private cloud. So why do I need to learn VPC? The first important thing is security. It will give you security. What kind of security? How it is providing? By means of isolation. By means of isolation, or I can say logical isolation. Logical isolation. See, remember guys, we are all working with the AWS public cloud. you may think other person can hack your resources and all. For that reason, I have to create one private infrastructure. I need to create one private infra. So in order to create a private infrastructure, we need a VPC. It will provide you the logical isolation between the accounts. It will provide you the logical isolation. For that reason, we are going for what? We are going with your VPC. So VPC it's mainly for to create a private network or private infrastructure. Whatever the resources that you are launching, right? Suppose if you want to launch your EC2 or I need to create one S3 bucket, where you can create it? You can create inside this private infra. Thereby, no one can able to access your maybe resources. So far clear?
Yes.
Right. Listen. Suppose I will give you a small example. I will give you one SSC example. Listen. I will give you one SSC example. Right. Suppose I can take one apartment, guys. You know apartment, right? You know all. Of course, you know apartment buildings. Everywhere apartments. Apartment. Right. In every apartment, right? Maybe you can take like one apartment. In every apartment, definitely, we can able to see. Maybe many. Okay. Right. Listen. See, consider in every apartment we can able to see different flats, right? Different flats. You consider this apartment is like AWS. This apartment is like your AWS. Inside this AWS public cloud, we have many apartment, right? So we can take many flat, maybe a room, whatever it might be. You can consider this flat or room. Maybe I can call on this kind of a VPC. So thereby you can able to maybe in this public apartment, you can able to buy the flat. You can buy the flat, but no one can able to access this particular room, right? By another person. Another person cannot access because maybe you add some maybe a locker, you add some lock, right? So like that. So here we have in many flats, right? This is my flat number 1, this is my flat number 2, and flat number 3, flat number 4. In the same way, in AWS also, you can able to create multiple VPC. Thereby, this VPC will provide you the private cloud, which will give you isolated network in which they will only operate. Suppose if you buy this particular flat, you guys can able to use this flat. You cannot use this flat, right? You cannot access this particular flat. Some other person can access this one because maybe they have created some private cloud with help of a VPC. So here itself, I can see the 6 VPC, right? The same way. Your apartment is a kind of AWS, it's a public cloud. But if I pay some amount and I can buy the flat and it is my house, other house I cannot access, no one can access my house, right? No one can access my flat. So that's, we can call it as a VPC. Are you clear so far? What is VPC?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, so VPC, it will provide you the logical isolation between maybe the resources or between maybe an account. So if you want to provide some logical isolation, of course, you can go for VPC. You may think like, why isolation? Why isolation? What is the purpose of isolation? I'm saying, right, there is a logical isolation. I said logical isolation between your AWS, because AWS is the public cloud. There you are creating some private cloud because you want to secure your resources. For that reason, you are creating some logical isolation. So I will give you one real-time example. So if you join any IT industry, in IT industry, definitely you will have many projects, right? You can find many projects. In each project, definitely you can see a many developer. You might be a tester, or maybe you might be a UI UX developer, or might be like data science engineer, or Tableau developer, or operational guy, or DevOps engineer, right? So we have a many role also here. In the same way, in a project, we can able to see one more term called different environment. I hope you all hear this word, different environment. So what is this different environment? What does this refers? So different environment is nothing but, see, suppose if you are working in a project, they have created many environment, guys. They have created the many environment. Maybe one environment, it is like maybe a development environment, which is called dev environment. You may hear this word. And some environment, we can call it as, say, QA environment. And one more environment, maybe like a stage. We cannot tell like only 4 or 5 environment like this. We may find many environment, like production environment like this. Do you know, guys, what is the use of this many environment? We can go for single. What is the purpose of environment, if you ask me? Where we can deploy our application, right? So environment, it is to deploy your application. If you deploy your application, then only the customer can able to see, right? Why you are developing your application? The reason, because the customer has to see your application. For that reason only we have environment. Now my question is, what is the purpose of different environment? We can go for the prod, right? Directly we can go for prod and we can deploy our application. The customer can able to see. But of course, in IT industry, they don't have one environment. They are using the multiple environment. What is the purpose of it? Here I have mentioned 4 environment. Some company they are using the 8 environment also, depending upon the project. Now tell me, why do we need this many environment? Only one environment is enough. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea why they are using multiple environment?
Yeah, because if we directly put the code or deploy the code, then it will be a problem. So step by step, we do it.
Yes.
We deploy.
Yes, you are correct. Yeah, Jaya. See, directly I cannot deploy my code directly into the production environment. If I deploy, what will happen? Maybe if there is a buggy code, what will happen? The customer will definitely report, right? There is no that much testing has been done. For that reason only, one of the main reason is I need to do the multiple level of testing. See, the developer, they will do some kind of testing on dev environment after developing the code, and tester will do some kind of testing, and in QA environment again tester will do few more level of testing on staging. Finally they will release the code to the production. There also they will do some kind of testing. So to make sure whether are we giving the right product, the quality product to the customer, in order to make sure that that's the one of the reason we are doing the multiple level of testing without directly pushing the code or putting the code on top of the production. We need to cover multiple level of testing on each environment. So that's the one of the reason. What is the another reason? What is the another reason why we need multiple environment? What is the another reason why we need a multiple environment where we need to host our application?
For security reasons.
Okay, security reason. What is the security here?
Give a best output.
Yes, for that reason only we are doing the multiple level of testing, right? That will give you the best, maybe a quality product to the customer. Is there any other reason? Guys, the another reason is different audience, guys. See, if we go with a dev, right, where we have a different configuration because it is only going to use by the developer. Again, if we go for QA, it's only used by the tester. Here it is the different audience. And go for staging, maybe the customer they will use and tester can use. And there also we have a different configuration. If I go for production, maybe a lot of people, like maybe a lack of customer or maybe a crow customer, they will use the application. If we go dev, definitely, lakh customer, they are not going to use it, right? In production only, all the customer, they will use it. So obviously, I need to test my application with respect to different audience. Thereby, I can get to know that whether even in the different configuration, whether my system is properly working or not. I cannot tell, right, everyone will use the Mac machine. I cannot tell, right, everyone will use the same configuration as like me, right? So in order to compensate different kind of audience, we need to go for different level of environment because dev environment is not same like QA. QA environment is not like a staging. Again, production also it is very, very different, right? So for that reason only, we are using even if number of topic is reduced, again my system should behave in the same manner, right? If by load also increased also. So for that reason only, we have a different kind of environment. Now this situation, I have a poor environment. I have poor environment. I don't want the QA, maybe the tester should have the access on dev. The developer, they should have the access on staging. Maybe the tester shouldn't have an access for production. Like that, I need to restrict, right? I need to restrict. For that reason only, maybe here VPC will play a one role. What we can do using the VPC, we can secure or we can make a logical isolation between the environment. Whatever the resources that I'm using, maybe EC2 or EBS or IAM or what, not IAM, sorry, EBS or EFS or maybe a database that I can launch it within the VPC, thereby other people cannot access it. Are you getting my point? Why isolation is required? Everyone? Or do you want me to repeat? Why isolation is required? Are you clear? Because there are many reasons, but I'm giving one or two reasons. Fine. Now, guys, 1 minute. To conclude this one, remember, so VPC, it provides logical isolation, and as like your EC2 and S3, VPC also, it is the regional service. VPC is a regional service. Outside the region, we cannot go with a VPC. VPC within a region, it's a regional service. And whenever, if you create AWS account, suppose on particular region, suppose if you are creating an AWS and you are logging with help of a North Virginia or maybe a Mumbai, we can able to see the default VPC, guys. You no need to create a VPC. In default, AWS will have the default VPC on every region. So let me show you. Suppose if you go AWS console. Now see, I am in North Virginia, right? So when I click on this VPC, when I see this VPC, click on this, your VPC. So here it is default VPC. It is created by your North Virginia. Here we have a default VPC. It is available, right? I didn't create it. Suppose if you are going maybe Asia Pacific Singapore, here also you can see a default VPC. So suppose if you are going for some other region also, London, right? I can able to see the default VPC. It means that AWS creates a default VPC in every region. So if I go in the right hand side, see here you can see one option called default VPC. The default VPC is yes, right? So in every region you can see the default VPC. Even I hope you remembered. Suppose if I create one EC2, I'm trying to launch an EC2 instance. When I launch an EC2 instance, we have a networking, right? We have a network settings. Under that, in default, we have a VPC, right? So even if you create any resources on your AWS, it is under a VPC. But we didn't study this one at that time when we create an EC2. But now I'm telling, right, we have a VPC, default VPC. Suppose, let me copy this one and I will try to go with this VPC and your VPC and command up, command B. See, both are same, right? In EC2 also, we are using the same default VPC only. So remember, AWS will create the default VPC in every region. Even when you create an EC2 instance, there is a default VPC. That's the reason how we are getting the public IP address and private IP address and all. Who will provide this public IP address? After creating the EC2 instance, you can able to see a public IP address and private IP address. Who is allocating this public IP address and private IP address? This is nothing but VPC only, right? Remember. So let's talk later, guys. More thing we need to talk, but let's talk later. As of now, any question? Any question till here? To answer your question, actually, in order to understand this one, you can go for quota page. Guys, whenever if you want to know maximum and minimum and all, just to type VPC quota, I think it's a 5 actually, but we can be able to adjust. So VPC quota page, just to type it here and go to the VPC quota. And Aman is asking how many VPC that we can be able to create per region. Aman, can you see here 5 VPC? But we can be able to adjust. It is yes. If we cannot directly adjust, we have to send the email to the support team. Support team will ask you some money. Based on that, they will increase or decrease based on your need. But if you ask me what is a subnet, how many you don't know the subnet, right? Limit. So as of now, we can be able to create 5 VPC, but it is adjustable. So to send the email to support team, AWS support team. Did I answer your question? Right. Guys, anytime if you want to know like how many, any question, right? You can go for the quota page. AWS VPC quota page or maybe EC2 quota page, you can get to know that. So what is the maximum and minimum limit and all. Right. Listen. Right. Yes, I just need to now let's try to understand the VPC architecture. VPC architecture. So I'm not going to cover the complete architecture. See, in a Google, suppose if I type VPC architecture, and we have the very complex, architecture here. As of now, I'm going to give only an overview. Later, if you understand the complete picture, once again, we'll come back here and then we'll try to understand how this architecture works. So as of now, only focus on the overview. As I mentioned, VPC is a regional service, right? So let me draw one rectangle. So here VPC, I'm considering this is my VPC. So VPC is a regional service. If you ask me how many VPC we can able to create under your region, yes, we can able to create 5 VPC, but it is adjustable, right? Listen, consider this is my Mumbai region. Inside the Mumbai region, we have created 1 VPC, right? So inside the region, we can see many availability zone, right? As you know, inside the region, we can able to see many availability zone, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 availability zone also. In some cases, we will select. As of now, I will take 2 availability zone. Let me take 2 availability zone. So this is my availability zone 1, and this is my availability zone 2. Consider this is my AP South B region, B availability zone, and this one is AP South A. I think inside the Mumbai region, we have totally 3 availability zones. Right? Let me take it like this. Now, as like your VPC, right? As like your region, we can able to split into multiple availability zones. In the same way, VPC can be divided into multiple subnets. Multiple subnet. Maybe this is subnet number 1, and this is my subnet number 2. As of now, you think like region is like a VPC, availability zone is nothing but subnet. Why do we need the subnet? Let me tell you later. VPC is the logical isolation. In the same way, subnet is also logical isolation between your VPC. We can able to divide your VPC into multiple subnet. Remember, VPC can be splitted into multiple subnet, as like region can be splitted into multiple availability zone. Suppose I have 1 instance, guys. Consider I have 1 EC2 instance. You hosted 1 EC2 instance inside your subnet, inside your availability zone. In this particular machine also, in this particular subnet also, we have 1 more EC2. Here we have 1 EC2, here we have 1 EC2, here 1 EC2. Now the question is whether this EC2 is the public EC2, it means that public server or private server. Public server or private server. I think like maybe I can make this is my public server. This EC2, I am going to create it as a public server, and this is I am going to create it as a private server. Whether it is possible. If someone is asking, hey, can I able to create a public server and private server within your subnet or within your availability zone? Yeah, it is possible. How? If you make your subnet as a public subnet, there are two subnet inside. There are 2 types of subnet. Public subnet is available. Also, we have a private subnet. Whatever the server that you are creating or whatever the resources that you are creating inside the public subnet, we can call it as public services. But whenever you create any resources on the private subnet, whether it's a database or maybe a S3 or EBS, whatever it might be, that resources that if you are creating inside the private subnet, that we can call it as private services. So for clear, remember we have a region. Region is like a VPC. Inside the region, we have a many availability zone. In the same way, inside the region, we can able to create many subnet. Inside the subnet, there are two types. One is public subnet and private subnet. I'm not saying, remember, I'm not saying inside the VPC, we should create public and private. No, not like that I'm saying. I'm saying there are two types of subnet. One is public subnet and another one is private subnet. If you want to create a public server, you need to go for public subnet. If you want to create a private server, you need to go for private subnet. But in Mumbai, we have a 3 subnet, right? Because 3 availability zone minimum. But if you go for North Virginia, there we have a 6 availability zone. Minimum we can create 6 subnet, right? In each subnet, we can create one subnet. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
No, Dinesh, you can come.
So remember, region, availability zone. Region is equal to VPC. Availability zone is nothing but subnet. There are 2 subnet, public subnet and private subnet. The services that you are creating inside the public subnet is the public services. The service that you are creating inside the private subnet is the private services. Any resources, it might be EC2 or EBS or S3, whatever it might be. Now, the question is, suppose I want to access this public server. When I say public server, maybe EC2. Say, suppose I want to install Java software inside the public server. I am the customer, right? I am the user. Maybe I am the developer. Definitely, I need a network, right? I need a network, maybe a public network or Wi-Fi I'm using. A public network I'm using. Using this public network, I need to install some software on top of this EC2. On top of this EC2, I need to install some software. In default, VPC always restrict your public network, guys. It will not allow public network to install or to do any operation on your resources because it's a VPC, right? It's a virtual private cloud. How it will allow your network? Definitely it will not allow, right? It will not allow. But how can I install some software on top of this EC2? For that, we have one option called gateway called internet gateway. We have one gateway called internet gateway. What is the purpose of this internet gateway? If you ask me, this will give you, or this will allow the internet. This will allow the internet. Say, suppose in this EC2, I want to install one software. We cannot make directly, it can able to interact with IGW, internet gateway. So what happened, right? This public server, the public server that will use one internal medium, which is nothing but a routing table. So in public server, what it requires? Maybe public server requires internet because I need to install some software. It will send some request to the routing table. This routing table has 2 parts, guys. One is destination. Another one is a destination. Another one is target. One is destination and target. Say what I need. I need the internet. If you need the internet, you need to contact what? You need to contact internet gateway. Like that, here you can able to see some key and the value. You can see the destination and target. So public server will send the request to the routing table. Routing table will tell, right, hey, if you need the internet, you can contact the IGW, internet gateway. Thereby, internet gateway will send the response to this EC2 machine. Thereby, we will get the internet. Remember. So in default, your VPC will not allow the public network. For that reason, in between of your public server and the internet gateway, we have a routing table. So public server will send the request to the routing table saying that I need the internet. So it has some key and value. Through that, it will ask you to contact IGW. So this is kind of a map. Routing table is like a map. Suppose I want to travel some other place. For that reason, I need to know the location, right? I don't know how to travel. Then better I can open my Google map and I can put that particular address and I can able to traverse, right, in the same way. Routing table is like a map between your public server and internet gateway. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Yes, no? No?
Then the internet gateway will directly communicate with the public server?
Yes.
Like the EC2?
Yes. It
Okay.
will ask you the request, right? To the routing table,
Okay.
and the internet gateway will send the response to the EC2. It's a kind of a map. There is a mapping between your public server and the internet gateway through the routing table.
Okay.
Now, suppose I have a subnet. Here we have a subnet, which is called a public subnet. And we have one more subnet, which is a private subnet. Consider like we have a two public subnet and private subnet also. Whatever the example that you can take, you can take. Consider I have one database here. I have one database here. I have one database. This is in another subnet which is a private subnet, or you can take public subnet also. That's your wish. Now, the thing is, this EC2 machine, right? This EC2 machine requires some data. It needs some data from this database. It is not available inside this particular subnet, but it is available in another subnet. So, will this public subnet or will this server, public server, can able to communicate with a resource in another subnet? That's the question. Will it possible to communicate one resource from one subnet from the another resource in another subnet? Is it possible? If you ask me, again answer is no. It is within a maybe a subnet. If you have a multiple resources, they can able to communicate. That's not a problem. But if we go outside the subnet, I want some data from these resources, which is called database. Whether it is possible, if you ask me, no, it is not possible. Then how can I handle this situation? For that, internally, AWS VPC using something called implicit router. There is one more a component, maybe an implicit router. Using this implicit router, this particular EC2 can able to make the communication with another subnet. So if there are 2 or 3 subnet, if one server wants to get some data from another resource or need to do some kind of interaction with another subnet, then obviously in between we require something called implicit router. Again, you are not going to create any implicit router and all, but this is how your VPC works. So this is default happened through your VPC. It is an entry question. That's the reason I'm telling you. So if someone is asking, hey, I have a subnet, I have one server. This server wants some data from another resource or another subnet. So anything required in between, yes, we require, which is called implicit router. So any question so far? Implicit router is a kind of a Zoom. See, if we are all in same room, I don't need a Zoom, right? I can able to directly teach you. In the same way, if all the resources inside this subnet, it can easily communicate with each other. But you are in some other place, right? So I need to communicate with you guys. For that reason, I'm using the Zoom. Through that, we are communicating. In the same way, here also we have an implicit router that can communicate between the subnets. Any question?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Partha sir.
நான் இப்போ ஜாயின் பண்ணுங்க கடைசி எனக்கு ஓவர்வியூ மட்டும் சொல்லிடுங்க.
Parthasarji, I know, like we have seen the VPC. VPC is nothing but a logical isolation. See, suppose if you are going with AWS account, it is a public cloud. Inside the public cloud, if you want to have some private cloud, for that reason only we are going for VPC. So in VPC, we can able to create a multiple subnetwork, which is nothing but a subnet. So we can have 2 subnet. One is public subnet and another one is private subnet. When you host any application inside the public subnet is called public server. And if you are using any services in the private subnet, which is called private service. And you may watch the recording, Parthasarji, because I already completed 20 minutes. 20,
Okay,
yeah.
sir. 45 minutes ಆಯ್ತು.
I think we have done around 40 minutes, right?
Okay, sir.
You can see
Sir,
the recording I will send you. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Any question, guys? Any question? No. Listen. Right. I said inside the public server, EC2, I want to install some software. For that, I need the internet. But in default, VPC won't allow your internet that you already know. Now the question is, with the help of internet gateway, we can able to supply the internet with the help of a routing table. But now the question is, inside the private server, I want to install some software. Now, for public subnet itself, we need a IGW, then only we can able to supply the internet. Again, can I use internet gateway, same internet gateway, in order to supply the internet to the private server? If you ask me, no. We cannot directly handle your private server inside the private subnet with the help of routing table and internet gateway and all. We need to follow some other mechanism. What is the mechanism? See, suppose I will give you one SSC example. Suppose you are in your room, right? And inside your room, right? Maybe one person, consider, maybe there are 4 rooms. You can consider like there are 4 rooms. Say this is my room number 1. And this is my room number 2. And consider this is the room number 3. And we have room number 4. Room number 4. And this person, I don't want to name it. So this is the person, this person, affected by COVID. Affected by COVID. So, right, in maybe in the world, when the person affected by the COVID, then he has to isolate, right, in the home itself, right? So in the same way, this particular person isolated himself on the 4th room. On the 4th room. Suppose he needed tablet, guys. Consider for he is affected the COVID, right? Maybe he need a tablet. He cannot go outside, right? Because this person is affected by COVID and he is isolated within your room. Definitely he cannot go outside to get the tablet and all. What he may think like, maybe he can ask his father, maybe in the room number 1, his father is staying. So what this guy can ask, right? Hey, you just, go outside. You just go outside and get the tablet for me. Get the tablet. Maybe he will go to the medical and he is getting the tablet and he is again returning this tablet to this particular father, and father will pick the tablet and he will give it to this particular person, right? It is possible, but definitely this person not going outside and he cannot take the tablet, right? So in the same way, if you are the private person, if you are hosted on the private server, then if you need the internet, we cannot directly go to the medical. What we may do, we can reach the public server. We can ask the request, right, through the implicit router. Already, we can request the public server, I need the network. Thereby, public server will help you and he will go to the IGW and he will give you the internet for you. He will give you the internet for you. Here, who is not giving the internet? Not internet gateway. Some other helping is done by your public server. Public server is getting the internet from IGW. Now, this time, this public server is acting as what? NGW. When I say NGW, network access translation. NAT is not NGW, sorry, NAT gateway, which is NAT gateway. Network access translation. Network access translation. So later we will understand this definition and all. As of now, simply remember the public server will get the internet from the public network through the IGW and routing table. But private server will not get the internet from the IGW. Instead, public server should get the internet from the IGW and it will supply to the private server. So in between, we need one gateway, right? That gateway is nothing but NAT gateway. Are you clear what is internet gateway and where is NAT gateway supplied? Yes, no? Guys, as of now, I am just giving the overview. It is only a theoretical part. We need to cover practically, then only you will understand. Just I'm giving an overview. Remember, Here, what I have covered, we have a VPC. VPC is nothing but logical isolation. We can divide your VPC into multiple subnet. What is subnet? I will tell you. Wait. There are two subnet. One is public subnet and private subnet. If you want a public server, you can go for public subnet. If you need any private server and private database, you can go with the private server. When the public resources wants to communicate with the private resource, we require the implicit router. When public server requires any internet, then we need to go for a routing table and internet gateway will supply the internet. But if sometime a private resources require an internet, we cannot directly contact your internet gateway. Instead, you have to reach out to NAT gateway. What NAT gateway will do? NAT gateway will collect the internet from the internet gateway and it will supply to you. So this is what I explained so far. Any questions so far? Can you quickly confirm? Yes, no? Guys, quickly confirm. Any question?
Dinesh, here the NAT gateway is also going through the same routing table, right?
Yes, it is also going to the routing table, but within a public server. Private server, we cannot directly contact with that particular routing table. Here, the public server is helping the private server, is helping to private server.
Yeah. So they helping, if in order to get the private server, the internet, public server is helping. That helping is nothing but NAT
NAT
gateway,
gateway.
right?
Exactly, correct, Jaya. You got it, yes.
Okay.
So others, any questions so far?
கண்டிப்பா ஒரு private network public network கண்டிப்பா அவசியம் சார்.
Yeah, private serverக்கு இன்டர்நெட்டை நான் இன்டர்நெட் கேட்வே யூஸ் பண்ணி கொடுக்க முடியாது. அப்போ பப்ளிக் சர்வர் இருந்தா மட்டும்தான் நம்மளுக்கு இன்டர்நெட்டே கிடைக்கும். கரெக்ட் பார்த்து சார். Any other question? No? Right. NAT gateway will only specified in public subnet. Aman, as of now, yes, you are correct. NAT gateway is available in public subnet. So we are getting the internet from the public server only. So there your public server or the public maybe a component is acting as a NAT gateway. You are correct, Aman. Right. Listen. Now, say guys, I said why isolation, I already given the answer, which is nothing but VPC. Now the question is why we need another isolation? Why we need another isolation? When I say another isolation, why we need the subnet? Why subnet? I will add multiple questions. See, why subnet? Because inside the VPC only we are creating the multiple subnet. Why in AWS is the public cloud, there we can able to create a multiple VPC because it is providing a logical isolation. And I am saying now, inside the VPC itself, we can able to create the multiple subnet. Why? Why we require the multiple subnet? Suppose, in order to demonstrate this one, maybe I will give one, maybe a demo with respect to the banking app, a banking application. We can see maybe a simple architecture. Suppose I have a web server, guys. Consider I have one web server. I have one web server. So this web server where we have hosted your web application, a banking web application. Consider like it's a net banking app. It's a net banking app that you have hosted on this web server. So what you have done? You just hosted your web application on top of this web server. Inside the web server, you hosted this web application. Now, what this web server has, if you ask me, this web server, maybe this web application, where you can able to transfer your money. If you want to transfer your money, yeah, you can able to transfer your money with help of this net banking app. And you know where the data and all will be stored. Of course, you know, we have a database, right? Of course, here every application will have database, Oracle or maybe Hadoop, some kind of database it has. And all this, whatever the data that you have hosted, that will be stored here. So all your the person information and along with the transaction data, everything will be stored inside this particular database. Suppose you are the customer, consider you are the customer. Now you want to interact. Now you need to interact with this particular application. Definitely will not go for database. Yes or no? You will not go for the database. What you will basically do, you will go to this web application and using this web app or mobile app, you will send some amount, right, to some other guy. But for that, which network you will use? Definitely you will use the public network, right? You will use the public network. Now to access this particular application. On top of this web server, it is hosted. Now my question is, where this web server is hosted? That's the question. You need to directly interact with this web server, right? Because you want to transfer some amount to your friend. Then obviously, this particular web server should be hosted in which network? Whether it's public VPC or private VPC. VPC itself private, right? So what I can do, I can create a public subnet right here, because the customer has to directly interact with this web server. Then only he can able to transfer or maybe receive some amount. Then obviously, I need to use the public subnet. Thereby, the application, the web server, it acts as the public server because you are hosting on a public subnet. Now, my question is, will you allow your customer will interact with your database? Definitely no. Are we accessing your database on Amazon? Are we accessing your database on Flipkart? Obviously no, right? We don't have any access. Only we can able to access your web application, the front end application. The back end application, we don't have any access. Then obviously this should be hosted in some other subnet. That subnet is nothing but a private subnet, because our operation only deals with the front end part, not with the back end. Then what the basically the Amazon or maybe other people will do, the developer they will host the front end application on top of the public subnet, and the back end application they will host it on a private subnet. So are you clear with why do we need the subnet? Why VPC is divided into multiple subnet? So in this case, what will happen? The customer will request something to the web application. That request will send to the web server, and that request will send to the database. And database will send the response to web server. Web server will send the response to web application, and finally you will get some kind of a message. You cannot directly access this DB. Are you clear? Why do we need a multiple subnet inside your VPC? Can you confirm? Yes, sir. So that's the reason we need another layer of isolation on your resource level. Here we are isolating the resources, right? See, web server is one resource. Database is another resource. Here we are dividing we are isolating the resources. That's the reason it is another way of isolation, which is nothing but subnet. So subnet is nothing but you are dividing your VPC into multiple parts between the resources. Any questions so far? Right. Listen, guys, some resources may be a public, and some resources may be private. Some resources may be public, database maybe in my case it's a private, and the EC2 which is my public web application, web server. Sometime we required direct interaction with the resources through the internet, through network or through internet, then you can go for a public. You can go for public. And sometime we require like interaction we record indirect interaction. We record indirect interaction with our resources. Then in that case, you guys can go for private subnet. So when you will go for public subnet, when you want direct interaction with your server. And if you want an indirect interaction with your server, then we can go for private subnet. So this is how we can provide the isolation in the resource level inside the infrastructure. So already we have created one private infrastructure. Within that, we are doing the logical isolation in the resource level, which is nothing but subnet. So subnet is nothing but logical partitioning for the resources. Logical partitioning for your resources. Any questions so far? Why VPC? Why subnet? Any question? Can you confirm why VPC? Why subnet? Any question? We can create many subnet inside the VPC. Remember, if you ask me how many VPC, 200 subnet we can able to create, right? But it is adjustable. Inside the VPC, we can able to create 200 subnet. Any question? Guys, can you quickly confirm yes or no?
Sir, அந்த
Yes.
200 சார் அந்த 200ல 200மே பிரைவேட்டா வச்சுக்கிட்டு அது யூஸ்
நம்ம இஷ்டம் தான் இங்க பாருங்க. If you want any information, you can go this VPC quota page. Here you can see, right, subnets per VPC, which is default, which is 200, but it is adjustable. You can create a public subnet or private subnet based on your need. Everyone clear?
Yep.
Okay. So now you are clear with the VPC and subnet. Now, see guys, I will give you maybe a small SSC example once again. Suppose, see, this is my world. This is a world. This is a world. So inside the world, of course, you know, you can see many persons, right? You can see many persons. So if I'm asking you, let's assume we are all classifying the person maybe using an identity name, right? We are uniquely, you know, identity is nothing but name. Even, you know, in our Zoom call around we have 15 members. How I'm differentiating you guys? By using the name, right? In the same way, in the IT world, in the network world, how we are differentiating your system, you know? How you are differentiating our system? How we are different?
With the IP address?
Exactly, correct. So the unique identity by means of IP address. Exactly. every system in the world has its own public and private IP address. So it has its IP address. With this only, we can able to differentiate every machine. It might be a cable, or it might be a switch, or it can take a laptop, or it can take a mobile, whatever it might be. Any devices or any system in the world, it has a unique IP address. Using that only we are differentiating. So let me take one more chilly example. See, and if I take a person, we are classifying the person, or we are differentiating one person with another person by assuming a name, right? Name is only is not a parameter, but just assume name is the parameter. In name, you can see a first name, also last name. Again, you can divide your name into the first name and last name. In the same way, in IP address also, you can see two portions. One is network ID, and another one is host ID. One is network ID, and another one is host ID. So in every IP address, you can see the network ID along with the host ID. Suppose, let me take one example. Suppose if you write like this, 198.168.1.0 and forward slash, let me write 32. Guys, the left hand side, right? 198.168.1.0, somewhat I have written, right? That's nothing but your network ID. It's nothing but your network ID. And right hand side, you can see 32, right? Which is nothing but the host ID. Sometimes it is also called as prefix. We can also call it as prefix. Like that also we can able to call. But let's stick with two words. Left hand side we can call it as network ID, and the right hand side we can call it as host ID. Always remember, network ID is always made up of 4 blocks. Inside the network ID, you can able to see 4 blocks. Again, if you ask me, in IP address, there are 2 version guys available. One is IP version 4 and IP version 6. But today's session, I am going to talk only about IP version 4, not IP version 6. You also stick with IP version 4. So here, whatever I am teaching, that is related to IP version 4. I am not at all talking about IP version 6. Right? Listen. See what I said. In IP address, we have 2 portions. One is a network ID and another one is host ID. Left hand side is the network ID and right hand side is the host ID. Network ID is always made up of 4 blocks. This is the first block, and this is the second block, and this is the third block, and this is the fourth block. In between, you can see 3 dots. If you ask me, is there what number we have to give in each block? If you ask me, it is a number only. It is a numerical value only. But every numerical value or every block should have the number which is ranging from 0 to 255. So every number, inside the block, the range is from 0 to 255. If someone is giving like this, 256.165.0.0, if someone is asking whether it's a valid IP address, you have to say no, because IP address ranges from 0 to 255. In every block, you should see the number only between the 0 to 255. Are you getting my point so far? Guys, this is related to networking. I'm not teaching the networking and all. Only whatever that's required for your AWS or required for VPC. Only that portion I will cover. Just to stick with this point. Any questions so far? So IP address, network ID plus host ID, left hand side network ID, right hand side host ID. Network ID has 4 blocks, and each place, each block should range from 0 to 250. Only the number should lie between this one. Now, you may ask, a host ID. We have a host ID, right? Host ID. What is the range of host ID? The host ID range from 0 to 32. Host ID ranges from 0 to 32. If someone is giving 33, no, it is not a host ID. If someone is giving -1, it is not a host ID. Even I can say 0 is also, it is not a host ID. Remember. So I can make better, it is a 1 to 32. So host ID range from 1 to 32. Right. So only this part is enough as of now. Remember, we have IP address. IP address for what? Just is the unique identification of a system. So if you want to identify your system, or if you want to communicate with your system, what we require? We require the IP address. So that IP address has two parts. One is network ID and another one is called host ID. So in network ID, we can see the 4 blocks. So all the blocks, the ranges should be in 0 to 255. 255. Now, it is fine. The next one is CIDR, which is CIDR. CIDR. This is also important. Guys, if you need to learn your VPC, there are two preconditions, guys. One is you must know the IP address and another one is CIDR. So CIDR, CIDR is nothing but classless inter-domain, classless inter-domain. What is that one? So I think classless. What is the abbreviation? This one I forget actually. Inter-routing actually. Inter-domain routing. Correct. Inter-domain routing. So classless inter-domain routing is nothing but your CIDR. So if you ask me what is the purpose of CIDR, why do I need to understand the CIDR? See, suppose I will take one name, right? The name is Chandler Bing is the name. Chandler Bing is the name. This is maybe considered like this is the first name and this is the last name, right? Kind of IP address. This is kind of your first name and last name. Network ID and host ID. Chandler Bing. But consider like this is the father name and maybe some other name also. So consider like this is the father name. And you know, this Chandler is not having any range. But if you take Bing, right? Suppose this father has a 4 child and wife and all, then we have a range, right, for this Bing. Maybe I can write like this. Moni Bing. Let me write like this. And I can write Joe Bing. I can write. And I can write Babro Ring. Right? Because always, you know, the last name has a multiple range, right? Here, right hand side, it is having the range. But Chandler is not having any range, right? Because he's the father. He may have a 2 daughter and 2 maybe child, and along with it, he also has wife and all. So obviously, you know, we can able to see a many range. In the same way, if you take your IP address, we have a network ID. We have a network ID / a host ID. For an example, 192.168.0.0 / if I put some number, this is a range, host ID. This host ID also may have a range. Remember, host ID having the range, we can represent in the form of range. Network ID is not at all having the range. What does it mean? What does it mean? Suppose I will write one IP address. Consider I have an IP address which is called 10.0.0.0 and / if I put 32, what does it represent? 10.0.0.0 / 32. If someone is asking, yeah, what is the range? So you have to immediately tell how many IP address you will get, guys, because suppose if you are working in some organization and you have created one AWS account, definitely you will not deal with one server. Maybe you have to create a thousands of servers. You have to create a thousands of database, right? For each user, you have to provide some kind of access, right? There are many IP address you require. So if you need a many IP address, where you will get the IP address? So you can get the IP address from CIDR. classless inter-domain routing. So 10.0.0.0/32. How many hosts you will get? How many IP address you will get? One IP address you will get. For this particular range, you will get only one IP address. And what is the IP address if you ask me? What is the IP address you will get it? You will get 10.0.0.0. Only this particular IP address you will get it. How it is? I will tell you. Wait for a while. Definitely I will tell you. Wait for a while. See, the next one. After 32, and before that, let me tell one more thing. I said IP version 4, right? IP version 4. There are two versions inside your IP address. One is IP version 4 and IP version 6. If you ask me IP version 4, how many bit they are utilizing here? 32 bits. How many bit they are utilizing here? 32-bit IP address, this one. It is the 32-bit IP address. I hope in the school and colleges we have learned different, numbers, binary number, hexadecimal, octal number in the same thing. Here we have a 32-bit IP address. Suppose if I write 10.0.0.0, first block will get the 8-bit, second block will get the 8-bit, third block will get the 8-bit, fourth block it will get the 8-bit. Totally how many bits? Obviously 32-bit it will get it. But if you go for IP version 6, the IP address is IP bit number, which is 128-bit IP address. This one, 128-bit IP address. Here you can see 4 portion. See, in IP version 4, you can see only number. But in IP version 6, maybe you can see the alphanumerical also. Thought something like this. Consider like something like this. One, two, three, four, 5, 6. Like this. So here each block will occupy 16-bit. 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16. So totally we require 128-bit. As of now, do not focus on your IP version 6, only focus on IP version 4. In IP version 4, you can see only a number. You cannot see alphanumeric. You can see only a number, and each block will hold 8 bits, which is totally a 32-bit. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
No, sir.
So listen. Now, see, suppose I'm writing like this, 10.0.0.0. Let's reduce 32 minus 8, which is around what? Which is around 24. Now, you have a question like, how many IP address we will get it here? What is the range you will get it? Here we have host ID, right, which is a prefix. Now, when I use the 32-bit, when I use the 32 as the range, we got how many IP address? Only one IP address we got. Now, if I use 24 here, how many IP address you will get it? The answer is, guys, remember, only you have to modify here. Only you have to modify it. Guys, tell me only one question. In every block, what is the range you have to allow? In each block, how many? What is the range you have to allow? What is the range you have to allow in each block? In network ID. Guys, in each block, what is the range you have to allow? In network ID. 0 to?
0 to 255.
Exactly, 0 to 255. So, when you use 24 right here you will get the range from 10.0.0.0 0.0.02, 10.0.0. Only this digit you have to change it. Dot 255, which means that you will get the 256 IP address. You will get 256 IP address. 10.0.0.0, 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.2, 10.0.0.3, 10.0.0.4. Like that, you will get till 10.0.0.255. When you use this CIDR, right? When you use this CIDR block, how many IP address you will get it? You will get 256 IP address. Are you clear? Yes or no? Yes. Guys, I will teach you this one. Wait, I will show some of the demo. You can easily understand. But as of now, are you clear?
Yeah. Clear.
Now, suppose, let me 10.0. When I use CIDR 10.0.0 slash, maybe say suppose, which is 16. Now, how many IP address you will get it? Consider 10.0.0.0 to 10.0. Now you have to affect this two. Already you affected only one, right? Now you have to affect this two. Then 255.255. Then it means that how many IP address you will get it. See how we are doing this one. 10.0.0. Right? It means that here we have a multiple division. 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.0.255. Right? Then 10.0.1.0 to 10.0 255.255. Yes or no? It means that how many IP address you will get? Around 65,536 IP address you will get it. Are you getting my point? Say suppose, let me put it like this. I can make it as 1.255. Then what will happen? There is a 2.0, then 2.5, then 3.0, 3.255, 4.0 and 4.255, 5.0, 5.255, 6.0 and 6.255. Like that, you will get 65,500. I think this one is 536. I think so. Maybe I can do like this. 65,000 approximately IP address you will get it. Are you getting my point? It's a combination, guys. Computation. Everyone? See, suppose if I say 0.0.1 to 0.9, fine. 0.1 to 0.9. This is the decimal number, right? If I say 0.1 to 2.0, how you will write actually? You will write like this, right? 0.1 to 0.9 and then
1.0.
Guys, are you able to understand this one or no? Can you confirm, guys? Or do you want some other example? Are you able to understand this one?
போஸ்ட் ஐடி பிட் கம்மி பண்ண நமக்கு
ஆமா, correct.
ஓகே சார்.
Host ID reduce பண்ண, we will get the more IP address.
For each blocks of the network ID.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Okay.
See, I will tell you. Listen, suppose you tell me now 10.0.0.0/8. Now tell me how many IP address we will get it? How can I calculate?
Network ID la 3 blocks to நம்ம 0 to 255.
Exactly. So 10.0.0.02. What I should write? 10.255.255.255. Is that right? Yes or no? So then we will get around 1 billion. ஒரு கோடிக்கு மேல. So in order to understand this one, see here, I will write. We have one URL. What is the URL that one? IP address guide. Yes, this URL. Let me go here. And here, let me convert your CIDR to IP version 4. See, suppose if I give 10.0.0.0/32. So now tell me what is the number of hosts we will get it? What is the number of IP address? We will get only one IP address. So when I click on convert, I can see how many IP address. Only total number of hosts is 1. I can see only a 10.0.0. That's the only one IP address I will get it. But if I change, instead of 32, let me reduce 8, which is equal to 24. And click on calculate. What do you think? I said around 65,530, sorry, 256, right? How many I said? How many I said? 1 minute. Yeah, I said 256 IP address, right? Yes or no? So how many IP address I'm getting? Totally I'm getting 256 IP address. Only the last digit will affect. But suppose if I give 16 here, how many, this 2 digit will be affected. Now when I click on calculate, now I will get around 65,536 IP addresses. So we will get it. When you reduce your host ID, suppose if I give 8 here, when you click on calculate, and I can get around a billion, right? So total number of hosts is 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, lakh, and 10 lakh and crore. 1,67,077,216 IP address you will get it. Suppose if I make it as a 0, I said right, 0 is invalid actually. So I think it will give you an error. Yes, invalid CIDR format. Maybe let me change the number to 1. When you click on calculate, still you will get many number, right? Even 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, lakh, 10 lakh, crore, 10 crore, 100 crores, right? So when you reduce your host ID, you will get many IP addresses. You guys can use it for your resources. Guys, we can give any number. Don't think like I can give only 32, 24 like that. No. Suppose if I give 31.
Okay, I found this on the web for.
So I can give the 31. When I click on, what happened? Yes.
I found this on the web.
Listen. So let me make it as 31. Click on calculate. Now see how many IP address we will get it. We are getting 2 IP address now. Suppose if I make it as 30, click on calculate, we will get more IP address. How many IP address? We are getting 4. Now suppose if I make 29, and I will get more IP address. See, suppose here we are getting 8 IP address. It's exponential. And suppose if I give 28 and click on calculate, and how many IP address we are getting? We are getting 16 IP address. Are you getting my point? So based on our host number, host on my CIDR prefix, we will get more IP address. Guys, listen, I will give you one formula, guys. You can easily calculate this one. I will give you one formula. So what is the formula? You can use it. Always I will prefer this formula when the people ask in the interview. See, the formula is 2 to the power of base is what? 32 bit, right? What is the base? What is the base for IP version 4, which is 32-bit? Minus, what is the minus prefix you have to pass it. When it's a prefix host ID, you have to pass it. Now, suppose if we have a forward slash, which is nothing but 32, then what you guys can do? 2 power 32 minus 32. 2 power 32 minus 32. 2 power 0. Anything power 0 is nothing but which is nothing but 1. Now suppose if you have 31, then what I can do? 2 power 32 minus 31, which is equal to 2 power 1. How many IP address you will get it? Totally you will get the 2 IP address. Suppose if you put 30, 2 power 32 minus 30, which is equal to 2 power 2, 2 power 4, which is nothing but 4 IP address. Suppose if you have 25 or 27, so you can write 2 power 32 minus 27, which is equal to 5, 2 power 5, which is nothing but 32. You will get the 32 IP address. So based on your prefix, you guys can able to calculate number of IP address that we are getting. Are you clear? Are you clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
So you guys can go for this formula to understand how many IP address you will get from CIDR. Everyone? Yes, why we have to provide a range for an VPC? Can you tell me? Why we have to provide a range for an VPC? Because within a VPC only what we are doing? We are creating our multiple resources, right? For that resources, what we require? We need an IP address. For that reason only in VPC, we need to learn a CIDR also. Everyone clear so far? Any question? Okay, listen. So I have an URL. Suppose I will go to this URL. This is my subnet calculator. I said, right, inside your VPC, we can able to create a mini subnet. Yes or no? Why we are creating a multiple subnet? Why we are creating a multiple subnet? Because then only I can able to divide my network into the multiple parts. Because some resources require the private server, some resources should be make it as a public server. Suppose I have my network address block, which is 10.0.0.0, which is /8. You know the /8, how many server you will get it? How many server means IP address? How many IP address you will get it? Around you will get 1 billion, IP address you will get it. Around 1 crore, IP address you will get it. Now, suppose I want to divide this IP address into multiple subnet, because inside the subnet only we have many resources. Suppose I need in my cloud, totally I have 8 subnet. Consider like I have 8 subnet I have created inside my VPC. I want to distribute my IP address into 8 parts. You just to go to this website and just to type 8. Guys, you can also do, no issues. But if you go this website, it automatically divide equally. Now it is giving, right? For the first subnet, you can take the IP address from here to here, 10.0.0.02, 10.31.255.254. For the second IP address, this is the range. Third IP address, this is the range. Fourth IP address, fourth subnet, this is the range. Like that, you can able to divide your total IP addresses also. Total IP addresses also. Maybe how many IP addresses are available? Totally we have this one, right? So what I can do, let me copy this one for this first, range. How many IP addresses is giving? Let me check. This is 1,67,000. Let me paste it this one. And when I calculate, what is that? 10 point, I think I made the mistake. 10 point. Which is maybe a forward slash. Let me put on and click on calculate. So how many IP addresses we are getting? Around 4,096 something. So the number it is mentioned here, which is 11, I think I made the mistake, which is around 12 actually, which is around 12. When I click on calculate, I think I am getting around 10,48,576. Oh, I made the zero again. Okay. So this is the number I am getting. So equally it will distribute your number of resources also. Again, if you record, you can divide it, or otherwise what you can do, you can give your customized number, that also fine. So this is the website, generally we will refer in order to divide your VPC into multiple subnet.
And Dinesh, is it compulsory to know all these, like the subnet, how we divide?
Yeah, if you are working in a company, sometime you need to create the multiple subnet. Suppose if you are creating a 4 subnet and you have total maybe IP address 256, I need to divide equally, right? You cannot see this number and all, you can able to write. But suppose if you don't know how to write and all, you can go to this URL and you can divide it.
So there, like a number of subnets, how many I need, I just need to mention over there, and definitely with that particular number of subnets, it will divide equally.
Yes, correct. See, Jaya, in a real time, even though when we create an AWS account, we will get the VPC, default VPC we will get. But suppose, you have to customize your VPC. Then obviously, you have to create your own customizable VPC and you have to create the multiple subnet over there. In that situation, and all, no one will teach, right? You have to create a VPC and you have to create the subnet. For that reason only you are learning. So here you can get how many addresses you will get, everything you can see it. Using this URL, we can able to divide your VPC into multiple subnet, and you can know how many IP addresses that we are getting in each subnet.
Okay.
Sir, then what is the difference between custom VPC and default VPC?
See, Aman, you already know, like when we go with the policy inside your IAM, right? There are 2 policies we have learned, Aman. One is managed policy and another one is custom policy. What is managed policy and what is custom policy? If I ask you, will tell, right? Managed policy, which is managed by AWS. Already it is giving some kind of policy that we can use it for our IAM service. But suppose if I want to create my own policy, how can I create it? I need to go for custom policy, right? Yes or no, Aman?
Yes.
In the same way, VPC will provide the default. It has some public subnet and it has the private subnet. Suppose if you want to create only a private subnet, suppose if you need under private subnet, suppose I need 65,536 IP address, how you will approach those things? Suppose a default VPC is providing only 20 IP address, but I want 65,536 IP address. How can I handle this situation? Of course, you need to go for custom VPC only, right?
Okay, sir, I got it.
Yes. Guys, consider we have a VPC. VPC is divided into multiple subnet. That's it. You just need to understand what is IP address, what is CIDR. IP address has network ID and host ID. In CIDR, it talks about the host ID. So it will give you the range. Suppose if you put a 32, you will get only one IP address. But if you make it as a 28, not 28, I'm making a mistake. I have to reduce 8, right? 24, then you will get 256 IP address. So when you reduce your host ID, number of IP address that you are getting, it will be increased. Why subnet, if you ask me? What is the purpose of subnet? Because I don't know whether the customer should have the direct interaction with your server. Whenever if the customer they want to have the direct interaction, then you can make it as a public subnet. But database and all, you shouldn't give an access to the customer. Then you can host it on private subnet. Thereby, it will be act as the private server. Yes, any question? So far, IP address header. IP address header. Any question? What is VPC? What is subnet? Everyone? Guys, tomorrow we have a practical implementation. That time I will tell you how to create the VPC, how to create the subnet and all. As of now, just tell me theoretically whatever that I have covered. Are you clear? When I see practically, you will understand more.
Yeah, Dinesh.
Clear.
Any question till now? No? Fine then. Guys, we'll see tomorrow. Maybe you have a session tomorrow. I will let you know and I will tell the class timing. I said 6 to 8, right? Maybe better we can continue with the same time. If any changes, I will let you know by tomorrow morning. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Fine. I will upload this video into YouTube. You just watch. Fine, guys. We'll see tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.